So this might be the most controversial quote from Pistons Media Day, and it comes from head coach Monty Williams. He says, I'm going to read the quote for you guys real quick. He says, where I'm looking for growth from Jalen Duren is when he's not at the center position. I think there's an opportunity for him to play the four. If we see opportunities to go big, it's going to be on him to be versatile, to rotate on the backside. And Detroit fans, they were upset. They're tired of hearing about the two big lineup. It hasn't worked, and you don't really need it in today's NBA. The teams that we have seen have success with two big lineups. We've seen Milwaukee, we've seen Boston, we've seen Los Angeles. But the thing that they have at the 4 and the 5 spot that the Pistons don't is versatility, unless Isaiah Stewart's three-point shot starts to fall more consistently, and then you will see Detroit start heading in the right direction when it comes to versatility from the 4 and the 5 spot. In my opinion, I don't mind Jalen Duren playing the 4 because I would rather see his career kind of be more of like a Bam Adebayo or a Chris Webber versus a Tyson Chandler. I feel like Tyson Chandler, I've heard on a lot of podcasts that dude had an incredible skill set coming in. He just didn't get to use it because he was 7 foot and they wanted it to play him one way. I don't want to see Jalen Duren get stuck in that one way. So while the Pistons are young, while they're not competing, while they're not playing for anything, experiment a little bit. Try him at the 4 spot. Allow him to grow his game. Let him be like those Bams or those Chris Webbers, those type of finesse guys that can also add a little power to their game. That's what I want to see from Jalen Duren. I have no issue with Monty Williams wanting to play Jalen Duren when the opportunity arises. I have no problem with that. And I even think some fans took it a little out of context. I really just think he meant when teams switch and they have a mismatch with Isaiah Stewart, who right now has a better post game than Jalen Duren, a little bit more finesse, a little bit more touch around the rim, that when they switch, we're going to have Jalen Duren go. We're going to have Isaiah Stewart go to the post, and we're going to have Jalen Duren kind of float more to the outside to clear more space for Isaiah Stewart to operate a little bit. I think that's more of what he meant, where it's going to be in those small pinches, maybe not necessarily for like a full game. We're going to see Jalen Duren play the power forward. And also, I think it comes down to what the matchups are game into game out. But what are your thoughts on that quote, Anthony?
Well, I do have the video of him talking about it because I like to give context because we could read a quote on this podcast and people could take it completely the opposite way. But I want to play this 55-second clip from Media Day about Monty Williams talking about it, and then I'll kind of give you my opinion about Jalen Duren possibly playing power forward. So here's the clip of Monty Williams talking about it.
His ability to guard the ball and want to guard the ball, and his trash talk after he stops someone is pretty cool. He's pretty creative with a number of things that he says after he blocks someone's shot or he gets a stop. Where I'm looking for growth from him is when he's not at the center position. I think there's an opportunity for him to play if we see opportunities to go big, and it's going to be on him to be versatile in rotating on the backside. And that's something that I think he's more than capable of doing with enough reps. But I think his IQ and his level of capacity is a bit further along than most young guys.
So that's why I wanted to play the clip, because there's a lot of context in that video of what you can take away. So he says, when the opportunity presents itself to go big, and I thought of two teams immediately when he said that. I thought of the Boston Celtics with Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford, which that's a huge duo. I thought of actually 3 teams now. I thought of the Cleveland Cavaliers with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. And I also thought of the Milwaukee Bucks with, Giannis and Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis and all those guys. So I think situation is everything in the NBA. And I think when you have 4 bigs on your roster, you're definitely going to try to slow those teams down because those are elite teams that I all named off. Those are all deep playoff teams that are expected to make the playoffs and try to compete for a championship. I have no problems with Monty saying, hey, I want to see how he develops as a power forward. Maybe he has a game where it makes sense for him to play power forward, and he does have a mid-range game. He has nice touch around the rim. I think his three-point shot, like watching the clips in practice, I think that's a work in progress, but I do think there's something there. I don't know if it's ready right now, but maybe in a few years. I have no problems with him saying that. I just think some people saw this quote and they ran with it. That's why I wanted to play the clip because there is context.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think it's his mashups. It depends if you're playing a big team like the Cleveland Cavaliers, Milwaukee Bucks, or the Boston Celtics. But has your opinion changed at all since I played that clip?
No, I still think it comes down to, again, opportunity is the biggest thing. And there are a few more teams that do go to with two bigs. Like we're going to see San Antonio do it this year. Minnesota does it with Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. Trying to think of a few more teams. You've already mentioned a couple of them. I mean, even the New York Knicks with Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson. You could even say the Orlando Magic with Paolo Banchero and Wendell Carter. Again, those teams have a little bit more versatility at the 4 spot than the Pistons do right now because the jury's still out on Isaiah Stewart and his three-point shot. But again, I think this can be a positive thing when the opportunity arises just for Jalen Duren's growth. I know Bam, I looked back at he didn't play a ton of power forward in the NBA, but there were moments when the Heat I think they had Kelly Olynyk on their roster where they played those two together and Bam got the minutes at the 4 when those two were on the floor. So I think that ultimately helped Bam's growth, and I think it can help Jalen Duren's. So my opinion doesn't change. I just think it's a smart move on Monty Williams. I don't think we're going to see Jalen Duren play the 4 a lot this season. But again, if the opportunity arises, why not have him go out there and do it? We're not playing for anything this season anyway, other than maybe a potential play-in game. But yeah, I would personally wouldn't mind seeing it.
Yeah, because I see a lot of comments because some people automatically assume, like, we'll put Wiseman at center and Duren at power forward because that's what they did in the summer league. But I think the biggest difference between all those teams that we did mention is they have elite guard play.
Yeah.
Not to say that we don't, because we both think Cade Cunningham is that guy, and we think very highly of Jaden Ivey. But, like, when you have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland as your backcourt, like, Darius Garland, I think, is really slept on. Just in my opinion, I think he's one of the best up-and-coming point guards in the NBA. Like, that guy can just pass it for days, and having an elite guard and a backcourt mate, Donovan Mitchell, next to him, they can make it work. The Celtics just got Drew Holiday, who, in my opinion, I think is still one of the best defensive point guards in the NBA, but he's an underrated passer too. And you have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum too. It's just like the Pistons can play a 2 big lineup, but it's really going to be dependent on is if Isaiah Stewart can become a stretch 4. Can he hit those 3-point shots at a 35-36% rate? Can Cade Cunningham get the ball to Jalen Duren? Can Jaden Ivey do the same? I think it can work. It's just there's a lot that goes into making it successful. And I think the Pistons are really banking on everything I just talked about. But I think eventually they will step away from it. I think this season they just want to see if it does work. But most NBA teams don't really play the 2 big lineups. Like, you don't really see it too often. But I mean, if they want to try it out, try it out. But I could see them going a more traditional route with just one center, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even with when other teams do go 2 bigs, those bigs, they do have more perimeter skills at the 4 spot. Then it's not like it was in the 90s and the early 2000s. You don't see any team play that style anymore with like 2 bigs that have strictly back to the basket, maybe only play out to 15 feet. You definitely don't see that anymore. But you do see 2 big lineups. It's just there's a lot of versatility. There's a lot of perimeter play from the 4 spot on a lot of these teams. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns lives on the 3-point line. Julius Randle, he can go out to the 3-point line, or he can take it in. He can even put the ball on the ground. Paolo Banchero, he's phenomenal at that 4 spot. He's a mismatch. He's a nightmare for other teams defensively. Victor Wembanyama, I mean, again, still don't know what he is, but he's 7'4". He can shoot threes. He can put the ball on the ground. There's just a lot of versatility, and I think that's where the Pistons are a step behind. But if you have that elite guard play combined with a 4 that actually can hit 34 to 35% from 3, you will be all right.